Jesus on Purpose podcast.
You are going to be very tempted because of your relationship with the person next to you to hope that the person next to you is listening, right? It's going to be a moment where I say, hey, here's something I want to challenge you on, and you're going to go, oh, I really hope that person heard that. Let me encourage you today to not do that, all right? You need to think about this in your context and not the context of the people around you. How many of you have ever been on a puddle jumper airplane? Right, you all know what I mean by a puddle jumper. So I recently was working with some friends in, I don't even know where that came from. Aaron, I think I pulled this right off. I actually I'll let that do that. I was working with some friends in Fort Dodge, Iowa. How many of you have ever been to Iowa? 2 of you. Excellent. Good to have you. How many of you have ever heard of Fort Dodge, Iowa? And that's what I thought. 1 of you. So when you get to Iowa from Bluffton by airplane, it's Savannah, Detroit. Well, it's Savannah, Detroit, Chicago, puddle jumper to somewhere, and then to Fort Dodge. And I recently had to do this. We took this little puddle jumper over to Fort Dodge, Iowa. This was the plane we flew. It's a cute little airplane with a propeller on it. I'm pretty sure that it was used in the first Indiana Jones movie. And when we got onto the airplane, I looked at the 2 pilots in the front seat. And the pilots in the one seat was like a silver-haired guy, kind of a crusty older guy. Like he had the headphones that were circa 1972, with the metal. Not plastic, and he had the real big microphone that came right down in front of him, and he had these aviator glasses that probably came from Walmart. And then we'll call him Ted, right? And so Ted, and then there was a guy that sat next to him. Let's just call him Junior, okay? And Junior looked like a 15-year-old version of Tom Cruise from Top Gun. And he had Bose headphones on, and he had Ray-Ban sunglasses, and he sat down, and he was all smiling and chomping his gum. And I only had one thought that kept crossing my mind, and that was, dear God, please let Ted be flying the plane. Have any of you ever experienced a moment like that? And so the 2 guys, I took a picture, I don't know if you can see, of the airplane. I was sitting in the back, and it was one of the deals where you get on the plane, and he says, we're going to give you the safety briefing. And it goes like this. Hey, ladies, well, first of all, it's hey, ladies and gentlemen, while you're on the flight today, if you could do me a favor, just fasten that seatbelt. It's like a car seatbelt. It comes right across your chest and clicks in. If you need to get off the plane, it's the same door you came in on. And this is the best, and if there's a fire in the plane, just let me know. We've got a fire extinguisher up front. Awesome. It was like, that is fantastic. Like, that's just going to be brilliant. And so what we end up doing is Ted starts to take off, and no kidding, and I don't know if you can see, I'm pretty sure this is an 8-track player right here. And I'm pretty sure it's got a Steppenwolf 8-track in there playing loud, ear-splitting Loudenboomer. There's just probably a reference that half of the room doesn't know. But we get in the plane, and I noticed that Junior's flying the plane. And Ted is actually the one who's telling him what to do. And I remember thinking, I'm never going to see my daughters again. And it was the kind of airplane when it like, it's not like you get into the clouds, right? Like you could actually just, like if you knew the roads, you could have just followed the roads from the airplane for where you were going. And the first thing that Ted and Junior did when they got into the airplane was put in the computer a flight plan. Now there's a little screen right in the front of the plane, and it had a line on it. And we stayed on that line the entire route to Fort Dodge. When we were doing this, this whole flight plan idea kind of hit me. There's a rule in avionics. It's called I refer to it the 1 degree rule. And the 1 degree rule says this. It says for every 1 degree that you are flying in the air off course, right? If you're off course by 1 degree, every 60 minutes in the air at 1 degree off, you will land 92 feet away from your target. Does that make sense? So if I'm 1 degree off of my flight plan, if I fly that for 60 minutes, I will end up being 92 feet away from where I'm supposed to land. Now, if you think about that, it doesn't seem like it's too big of a deal, except if you fly from JFK to Los Angeles Airport, you will end up 50 miles away from the airport if you're just 1 degree off. 50 miles. And even that, I thought, well, 15 miles probably isn't that too big of a deal. I mean, right? So if you wanted to fly around the world, just the equator, and you started and you wanted to end in the same place, and you were just 1 degree off for an entire flight around the world, you would end up 500 miles off course when you landed. Just 1 degree off of a flight plan. So I want to talk about this morning because it seems to me that we are very ready to accept that kind of truth when we're talking about our businesses, right? So I pastor a church, and if you think for a second that churches don't have strategic plans or we don't come up with business strategies, you're crazy. All of us do. Churches do, businesses do, nonprofits do, for-profits do, doesn't matter what you're selling. In fact, we will spend thousands. Some of you will spend tens of thousands. Some of you may even spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to figure out how to build a plan for your business to be incredibly successful. In fact, the reason you're sitting in this room today is because you recognize the investment of planning. Am I right? Would you agree with that? This is audience participation. You can say yes. Yes? I mean, every one of us is in here because there's a value or a purpose to planning for our business. My question this morning is, if we understand the power of planning, why don't we plan for our lives? If you're willing to spend thousands of dollars for your business to be successful, that's right, thank you. For your business to be successful, why wouldn't you have an even bigger investment in being successful in your life? Just let that sink in for a minute. We understand the power of planning. Why don't we have a plan for our lives? A life plan is what I want to talk to you about a little bit today. This idea of having a plan for not just your business, but your life. And for your life, I mean your personal life, your family life, your career and business life, your spiritual life, your community life, your tribe, where you are, where you live. If you think for 1 minute that your business and your life don't intersect, then you must not be in the same kind of business context that I'm in. I think we talked yesterday. Scott makes this comment. What's the comment you make about life and business intersecting? They always necessarily intersect. Would you agree or disagree with that? How many of you have had business bump into life? Let me see your hands. Right. How many of you have had life bump into business? Okay. How many of you have been either the beneficiary or, a positive or negative, of somebody else's life butting into business? Okay. How about having somebody else's business butt into your life? Right? Necessarily connecting. So how come we don't spend as much time investing on life planning as much as we do on business planning? I want to give you some benefits. I think the ladies just gave out a piece of paper. If you want to jot some of this down, please feel free. You are welcome to. There isn't any of this that you can't have. And so just write some of this down. Let me give you some benefits to having some kind of a flight plan or a roadmap for your life. When you do life planning, this is what happens. It gives you an identity. Here's what identity is. And I'm only going to have time to really kind of drill into one of these today. So I'm going to give you all 5, and then we're going to talk about rhythm. We're going to talk about one of them. But identity. When you have a plan for your life, here's what identity is. Identity is knowing who you are and accepting who you are not. Okay? Identity is both knowing who you are and accepting who you are not. I know a lot of people who are very comfortable with the Myers-Briggs test or a DISC profile or a leading from your strengths or a Strength Finder 2.0. I've done all of them as well. And they're great. They're fantastic, and I love them. They tell you who you are, but we often forget to recognize that it tells us who we are not. How many of you have ever worked for somebody who's really good at knowing who they are, but they cannot accept who they are not? You see the friction? This is the moment where somebody is right now saying, okay, I hope so-and-so at the table was listening to what he just said. Right? Identity is both knowing who you are and accepting who you are not. Intention, and this is what we're going to spend time talking about today, is finding your rhythm and defending it. We're going to unpack that a little bit more in a minute. Life, having a plan for your life is about investment. It's about understanding how to pour into yourself first and then into other people. This is a big one, and I wish I had more time to talk about this one, but we tend to want to pour into everybody else first. Why? Any ideas? It's easier. It's a whole lot easier for me to fix your problems than it is for me to fix my problems. You know why? Because if I focus on your problems, I get to leave your problems. I don't get to leave my problems. And so we like spending time pouring into other people to fix them, when in reality, we should be pouring into ourselves first so that we are leading from fullness instead of leading from emptiness, right? When you have a plan for your life, it helps identify that investment. Invitation is the idea of asking for help and listening to others. This promotes something that a lot of, and I'm just going to be very honest with you, a lot of us in the room probably have a hard time with, and that is it promotes a deep level of humility. Where I'm going to say to other people, I need your help. I need your input. I need your wisdom, wise counsel. And then the last one is integrity. When you have a plan for your life, it helps you figure out what is right, and it encourages you to do it, especially when it's hard. One of the prayers that we've had for our daughters, our 2 daughters, I have a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old. We kind of have an adopted 23, 24-year-old daughter as well. And the one thing that we pray for them, I have prayed for all of our daughters ever since they have been in our house, is God, please help them do what's right even when it's hard. And when you have a plan that keeps you on focus, it helps keep you from moving that 1 degree off. Because if my daughter's sense of right and wrong are off when they're 16 at 1 degree, how far are they going to be off when they're 26? How far are they going to be off when they're 46? How far are they going to be off when they have kids and have to teach integrity to them? Right? And so having this plan that keeps you on point is hugely, hugely important. So I want to give you just some five outcomes of a life plan. We're going to focus on one of them today, and that's finding your rhythm and defending it. Okay? I'm a music guy. I'm a music guy through and through. My undergraduate degree is actually in musical composition. I love music. And I want to talk about rhythm for just a few minutes. I'm a huge believer in rhythm over balance. How many of you have ever tried to live a balanced life? How much of that has ever worked for you? Here's the myth about balance. There isn't any moment in your life where you will find such utter and complete balance that you'll never be out of balance again. You will always be out of balance. I'll prove it to you. You work hard all year long. Like, you kill it. You get up early in the morning, you to go to bed late at night, you put in the hours, you're either building your own business or you're working for somebody else. You're just crushing it, and it's exhausting, and it's tiring, and it's overwhelming. And let's say you do this for 50 weeks. Do you take 50 weeks of vacation to recharge? No. How much do you get? About 2 weeks, if you're lucky. And now you're all thinking about the boss at your table and how they need to rethink that, right? There's no balance here When we say, I'm going to kill it, and here's what happens to me. I'm going on vacation. We're taking our annual Christmas trip up to Indiana. That's where we come from. And so every year we go up to Indiana. In order to get ready to go to Indiana, guess what I have to do for 2 weeks to get ready to go for 5 days? Twice the work. Is that balance? No. And when I'm at home, is there balance in Indiana while I'm visiting 5 different families and opening presents and drinking nasty eggnog and having fruitcake that I can't stand? Is there balance there? No. And when I get back on Monday and I go to my office and I feel like I need a vacation, is there balance there? No. Can any of you identify with that? Yes. Balance is a myth. It doesn't exist. Scott said I'm a pastor. Even God didn't have balance when He created the world in 6 days. How many days did He take off? He didn't take 6. He took 1. Balance wasn't the key. You know what the key was? Rhythm. In the dichotomy of God's creation, He said, hey, take every 7th day off. You're going to bust it for 6 days, but find a rhythm in the midst of your context. That's why rhythm is so deeply important. There's another reason that rhythm is really important to us. I love this. How many of you ever heard of Bobby McFerrin? Come on. Now, have you heard of Bobby McFerrin? Yes. Everybody knows, don't worry. Sure, you know who Bobby McFerrin is. So I want to prove to you that we are hardwired. We are hardwired for rhythm, whether you know it or not. It's an innate part of who we are. And so this is Bobby McFerrin at the World Science Festival. This was about 8 years ago. It's about a 2-minute clip. I love it. I hope the sound works. Just watch what Bobby McFerrin does to prove the point of expectations and rhythm. Oh, that was really good. Here we go.
Talking about expectations. What? What's interesting to me about that is, regardless of where I am, anywhere, every audience gets that. But it doesn't matter, it's just, the pentatonic scale for some reason.
If you're looking for a job in neuroscience, okay. everywhere in the world Bobby McFerrin goes, whenever he does that exercise, it's called the pentatonic scale. Everyone naturally knows the pitches and the rhythm of that exercise. Every single place he goes. Doesn't matter the nationality or the language, any of it. They all know it. We are innately wired for context. How many of you do music? Like, would you say you're musical? A few of you? Okay. We got to work better in our school programs on music programs. So here's the thing about music. When you write a piece of music, you start off with what's called a time signature and a key signature. It's in the top left of the front line, and it has some little B's and some little pound signs, and it's got some numbers on it. That sets the context for the entire piece of music. It tells you what the tempo is, right? And it tells you how many beats there are per measure, so that if you want to change the rhythm, you can, but it's going to fit inside a specific tempo, right? Our problem is that in our lives, our tempos change all the time, right? Sometimes you run at this pace, sometimes you run at this pace. Sometimes you run at this pace. But there's always a pace. The key is to figure out how to stay in rhythm when the pace changes, right? I have a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old. Do you think my pace now is faster or slower than when they were 7 and 2? Faster or slower?
Faster.
How many of you think that it's faster with a 2-year-old or slower with a 2-year-old? Listen, it's been a while since I've had a 2-year-old in the house. It is faster with a 2-year-old, I'm telling you. At 19, we bought a car for my daughter the other day. She saved up. We kind of went double and bought a car for her. The only thing that's moving faster with my 19-year-old daughter is the amount of time that I have left with her. But the pace of life is different between 9 and 19. We live in the low country. A lot of retired folks in the low country. I would gather to say that their pace of life is very different than my pace of life at 46. Pace and speed is one thing. What we're after is finding a rhythm to settle in no matter what the pace of life is. Because when you are in rhythm, life is easier, right? Finding your rhythm and defending it. And we all know what good rhythm is. We all can identify good rhythm versus bad rhythm, right? Let me give you an example of good rhythm. How many of you just got a little freaked out right there? Right? Here's the deal. I would guess that every one of us in the room, some part of our body was doing this. Oh, yeah. Yep, every one of us in the room were thinking, I can do that. I'm going to tell you now, no you can't. All right. We know what good rhythm is because we can feel it. It's comfortable to us. It's natural to us. We also know what bad rhythm is. Okay? Now, I'm not going to play all of this clip. I don't have time. But there was a TED Talk a few years ago where a few scientists set out to define what bad rhythm is. They entitled their talk The Ugliest Song in the World. They took sonar, they bounced it around underwater, they made sure that none of the sonar sounds or pings were identical to anything else. They equated those to sounds on a piano. They lined the rhythm out by what's called the Golomb ruler. And the Golomb ruler is a ruler that has no set definition of distance between measures. So in other words, there's absolutely zero pattern of repetition in this piece of music. None. Not in pitches or in beat or in rhythm. It's considered the ugliest song in the world. I'll only play a few minutes of it. It goes like this. There are two things that crack me up about that piece. First, he was a very serious piano player, right? The second is this. While you think you can beatbox, but you can't, you could play that music. Every one of us could sit at the piano and figure out how to play that song. We know rhythm when we experience it, and we recognize bad rhythm when we don't. We are very ready to accept this in business. It's amazing to me how quickly in the life of my church, I know when my church is out of rhythm, right? When we have hundreds of people that are or are not connected, where we have volunteers who are or are not plugged in, when we have people who are or are not on mission. Like, you can feel the rhythm of the place that you work. And when you feel that the rhythm of your business is out of sync, what do? You fix it. I mean, you immediately want to fix it. You'll bring in experts to fix it. You'll call team meetings to fix it. You'll go on team retreats to fix it, right? You'll bring in training for individuals who maybe are out of rhythm because their lack of rhythm is affecting the rhythm of the team. We recognize this in business. Why don't you recognize it in your life? Many people in this room, now we're going to get personal. I got 8 minutes left. Many people in this room can sense when their marriage is out of rhythm, and they'll do nothing about it. But if it were their business, they would invest the farm to fix it. You will know when you are personally out of rhythm, physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. You'll feel it. You'll know it. Something is off. And if you felt that way about your business, you'd fix it. But when you feel that way about your life, you don't. What are you waiting for? In business, I'll just throw this up here. When you combine rhythm with the expectations in business, everybody has expectations in business. We have expectations about how much we're going to sell, what our market share is going to be, right? We have expectations of what people are going to do and what they're not going to do. We have expectations of whether we're going to expand or not expand. We throw these expectations out. We're business owners, we're business leaders. That's what we do. So we take the rhythm of expectations, and then we take the pace of the season. Seasons change the pace, right? If you're at Taylor's Landscaping, chances are you're busier in the spring and in the summer than you are in the winter. It's a different season, and so the pace of business is very different. And so your expectations change because the pace changes. So your rhythm and your pace are defining the context for your workplace. Rhythm and pace begin to define the context for your workplace. You recognize this all the time in business. Why don't we take the time to recognize it in our personal life? Why don't we do that? The truth is, we're quick to recognize it. We're not quick to act on it. We aren't. You want to know some telltale signs on whether you're out of rhythm in your personal life? Anxiety, depression, relationship issues, money problems, addiction. Those are all blinking lights that say you are out of rhythm. Something isn't lining up. You are 1 degree off course. The reality is most of us in this room have no idea what on course looks like because we don't have a plan for our life. And if I'm out of rhythm with my life plan, I will absolutely be out of rhythm with my work. Because the two necessarily collide every single day. And when that collision happens, you better choose wisely which you're going to walk away from. Your business or your life. Rhythm and business. Let me just kind of shift gears for a minute because there are some of you in the room right now that are probably thinking, well, I have a life plan. I've invested heavily in a life plan. It's my business plan. I've got a great business plan and that's my life and my life is my business. Let me just inform you right now, no you don't. Some of you in the room might be thinking, well, here's my life plan. My life plan is build a business that makes enough money so that I can retire early, and when I retire early, I'll be able to do what I want and I'll live free. That's not a life plan, folks. That's a pipe dream. All right? That's not a life plan. It's not. I've been kicking this around for a while now. There are 5 areas and domains. There's a group called the Patterson Group that I picked all this up from. This is so good. 5 domains in your life that you need to be thinking about. Personal, physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. That's one domain. Family, your relationships, your spouse, your parents, your kids. So you've got personal, you've got family, you've got spiritual. Your spiritual life, whether you're a person of faith or not, there's generally always some level of spirituality or belief that you attach yourself to. Your career, your business life, and then the last one is your community, your tribe, the people you do life with. These 5 domains. If you don't have some kind of flight plan or life plan for those 5 domains, those 5 areas of your life, then you don't have a life plan. You don't. This is what I've been kicking around, and then I'm going to wrap up here in just a minute. Some of you are going to say right now, well, I have dreams. I have all kinds of dreams. Let me just say this. Dreams with plans become eventual realities. If you have a dream and you couple a plan with that dream, it has the power to become a reality. However, dreams without plans just become frustrating fantasies. You all know the difference between a fantasy and a dream, right? A dream is something that I can envision. It's something I can chase after. It's something I make a plan for. It's something that has a future. Versus a fantasy, where you just kind of dream off in that distant land that you know will never happen. Fantasies generally never encourage people. They discourage people. Man, if I could just have, I wish I could, if I could do it, I would do it. Versus a dream. Man, one day, someday, how am I going to get there? Dreams with plans become eventual realities. Dreams without plans become frustrating fantasies. You live this in business all the time. You don't fantasize about having a third or a fourth store or having more clients. You dream about it, and then you build a plan to execute that dream. Why don't you do that for your life? And some of you right now, again, are saying, oh, well, it's no big deal. What you're thinking in your mind right now is, but I have a plan. Now, I didn't put this up on a slide because I think it's easier for me just to explain it. Here's what we tend to do. We tend to take See if this resonates. We tend to take our business, big box, and we create a plan for our business, our career, and then we take our life and we put it inside that business plan. Instead of having a life plan, big box, and putting our business plan inside of our life plan. You see the difference? Most of us will invest significant time and energy and money and resources to build a business plan and pray to God that our life plan will work out, instead of building a life plan and putting a plan in place where we know our business will work out. Which would you rather succeed at? Business or life? I would guess that whichever one you have a plan for tells you which one you're prepared for. Right? So I'm going to wrap this up. This is usually where I would tell a big story, and I would bring it home. I'll say this about rhythm, finding your rhythm and protecting it. I don't have a big story, by the way. I want to leave you with questions instead of stories today. When I was 30, I will say this, when I was 34 years old, I was diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. Any AFibbers out there with me? Awesome, just me. So at 34, now that's one of those. It's one of those things that you see on TV. Usually when we're binge watching something on Hulu and it pops up, and it's one of those things that says, if you are 65 or older and you have atrial fibrillation, then you should. And I go, I was 34 when they gave me that diagnosis. It's not that big of a deal. For me, it really isn't. It just means that my heart every once in a while has a freak out. And so I was leading worship in a church service on an Easter Sunday. This was a pretty good-sized church, and so we had 6 services that weekend. We had about 7,000 people at church that weekend. I got choirs and orchestras. This was back in the day, and I'm leading worship, and we're singing on the lights and all the deal, and all of a sudden my heart just takes off. And then it starts to skip beats on stage. And I remember walking off and grabbing my intern and saying, listen, my worship associate, my intern, I just remember saying, listen, if I don't know, pass out, you need to keep singing. Just keep going, and it'll work out, right? If I walk off the stage, you guys just step right up. They kept a medical team off the side of the stage for the morning just to make sure I didn't pass out. And I had to wear one of those Holter monitors. I don't know if you've ever had to wear one of those where they follow your heart pattern for a while. Has anybody ever had to do one of those? I had to wear one, and every time I would feel an episode, I had to record it. And after 4 recordings, I'd have to call the office and hold the thing up on the phone and let them record the deal. And so that next Monday, I wore my little halter deal. And I all day long, it would go off, and I'd do, hi, this is Beaumont. Here's my number. I'd record the thing, and I'd put it down. And later that day, it was about 6 o'clock that evening. This was an office in New York. We lived in Indiana. And the lady on the phone in New York I said, this is Beaumont. She said, is this Michael? I said, you know what? It can't be a good thing that you know my first name. And she said, Michael, you can take the halter off. You've had 74 episodes today. Okay. And he said, you're going to go to the hospital in the morning. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I go to the hospital, and again, no big deal. They just put me on some medicine, right? So every once in a while, when my heart decides to get out of rhythm, it beats about 280 beats per minute, and it beats sporadically. It's like that happens in fits. And so when I get out of rhythm, my wife knows it, my daughters know it, I get really cranky, I can't focus, I get out of breath. And in order to get back into rhythm, I just have to go lay down. I just have to, it's like my system has to hit a reset button. Most of you in life are living day to day completely out of rhythm. And you don't know it. You don't. You're striving to find that rhythm in your business, but you're not looking for it in your life. And I would venture to say that your life is more important than your business. If you don't have a plan for your life, chances are you will never reach the full potential of who you are and of what you can do. I'm going to leave you with 3 questions, and they're on the sheets in front of you, and so you can do what you want with these. Scott, I'll turn this over to you at this point. I know you guys are going to have some table conversations about this whole idea of a life plan. I just want you to chew on 3 questions today that help bring some kind of a life plan in focus for you. And the questions are: where are you today? How did you get here? Who are you? What do you value? And where are you in 10 years? And what's important now that gets you there? Let me just end by this. Just remember, if you are 1 degree off, 1 degree off, now, think about how far off target you will be when you are writing your legacy later in life. It only takes 1 degree off plan to change everything about the trajectory of